Hey, Daily Dosers, it's Kristen from the Fallbrook campus. So, 4 days after this past Christmas, I got one of those phone calls that we all dread. My dad called me to tell me that my mom had passed away, and I was honestly shocked because she was at home and her and I had been texting late into the night just the night before, and she seemed to be feeling okay, acting like herself, and then just gone in an instant. And if you've lost someone close to you, you may have experienced this thought that in the midst of your heartbreak and great loss that brings your whole world to a halt and changes your life, everything else around you just keeps going like nothing happened, completely unimpacted. Even if you're someone like Betty White or Larry King, who also died last year, people who were world renowned, that did significant things, touched many lives on some level. The reality is that those close to them might take pause, but the world at large simply keeps going. Nothing ultimately stops or changes. And then you're a memory only to those few who really knew you, but they keep going and eventually they're gone and you're mostly forgotten. I mean, how many of you really know your great grandparents? Maybe a picture and a couple stories, but what about your great great grandparents? Most people don't know anything about them, and that's your own family. And that'll be us someday. Just someone's great great grandparents that they knew nothing about. And one of my favorite books in the Bible is Ecclesiastes, which some people find a bit depressing, but I love it because it's a reality check on the brevity and the ultimate vanity of so much in life. And when your life is touched by loss, you resonate even more with the ideas that Solomon expresses here. One of my favorite passages is Ecclesiastes 7 2 through 4, and it says, "It is better to go to a funeral than a feast, for death is the destiny of every person, and the living should take this to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter because sober reflection is good for the heart. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of merrymaking." Okay, kind of depressing, but verse 1, chapter 1 verse 4 says, "A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever." And the last one is Ecclesiastes 1:11. "There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after." Life is short. And I'm sorry to be such a downer today, but Solomon reminds us that it's good to reflect on this stuff, even though it's a bit melancholy, because it gives us perspective on what our life actually is. Short and unpredictable, but death is certain. But the good news in my loss is that my mom knew and loved Jesus. And right now, after her 72 years of life, that's literally all that matters, because now she alone is faced with her creator. None of us can go with her. In the end, it's just you and him. And he won't ask you where you went to college, what your GPA was, who you married, what your hobbies were, what job you took, how many kids you had, what car you drove, how many followers you had, or what kind of house you lived in. He will only be concerned with one thing. Did you know him in this life? Did you love him and love others in this life? Did you follow him? One of the most haunting passages to me in scripture is Matthew 7:22 through 23. Here's what Jesus says. "Many will say to me on that day, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out many demons, and in your name perform many miracles?' Then I will tell them plainly, 'I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers.'" And on that day is Judgment Day, the day when each one of us will stand before our Creator alone, and the question will be whether or not you knew him. And this past weekend, Larry did such a good job of helping us to understand exactly what Jesus is saying here through the story of David, that this is not about religion, but it's about the need for an actual living and individual relationship with Jesus. Jesus is warning us that there's no value in our words or fulfillment of religious duties if he doesn't have our heart. There's no value in giving God a nod and acknowledging his existence if you don't hand the steering wheel over to him. Does Jesus have your heart? Do you answer to him on all matters? Because He's not one of many religious options, but rather he is the solution to a problem, the problem of sin and death that we all have. If you truly know him, you can't help but love him. And if you love him, you will never be satisfied with religion. He's not a box to be checked, and his desire is not a list of rituals, but a heart that is surrendered to him. So on that day, we can be called in by name and hear the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant."